Human trafficking is a worldwide issue that many people have become passionate about fighting, but this passion can often be hard to translate into change. One of the biggest steps an individual can take is to become educated on the topic of human trafficking. Russ Tuttle is the president and founder of the Stop Trafficking Project, an organization focused on preventing and raising awareness for human trafficking. Through the organization's Be Alert strategy, Tuttle has given countless presentations designed to educate both students and adults. Here's what Tuttle had to say about trafficking education in the US and his personal experience in becoming educated on the topic.
Living in India, I became aware of a form of slavery that is now called human trafficking. So particularly saw a lot of labor trafficking, where particularly kids and adults were being forced into sweatshops and that kind of thing. 2009 really felt determined, like I wanted to make an impact of that. So thought I was probably just going to naturally go back to India where my connections were, and through a lot of different circumstances, situations, began to realize that there's actually a form of slavery happening right here in the United States, and it's impacting students through something that we call domestic minor sex trafficking. So my understanding was probably pretty typical for most Americans. We think, and we have some kind of an understanding, human trafficking happens in those exotic countries over there. And we don't stop to think that this is actually something that's impacting American kids right here in the communities where we all live. Even having traveled overseas my entire life, having lived in another country, speaking another language, being very immersed in the culture, I still had that somewhat of a limited understanding on the topic of human trafficking. So one of the things that we have to really be careful about is to not become frustrated with people who don't think this is happening here, because a lot of good people just don't understand. And so good people can't do anything about this issue if they don't first understand the issue. So prevention through good awareness is really the key. Bad awareness can actually do more harm than good if we're putting out bad information, or we have a lot of passion, a lot of zeal with no wisdom.
With this idea of good awareness in mind, Tuttle gives some foundational information about human trafficking.
If you really think it through, you can boil every form and category of human trafficking down to three words. It's always about the exploitation of vulnerability. So whether it's a vulnerability of poverty, or maybe it's a vulnerability of a kid being in a foster care system, maybe it's a vulnerability of a child was harmed in unthinkable ways by a family member when they were really small, or maybe it's a student who has stumbled onto something through social media. All of these things can become vulnerabilities. Anything and everything we can do to lessen the vulnerability in another human being, and especially in kids, before that vulnerability leads to the next vulnerability that's going to lead to the next vulnerability to where some form of exploitation can enter. That's really one of the keys in combating this, because a lot of times people think, well, I want to combat sex trafficking. What they have to understand is combating sex trafficking looks nothing like sex trafficking. Because typically people say, I want to help. And what that means is they want to hug someone who's been harmed, and they want to bring harm to someone who is buying or selling another precious human being. Well, neither of those are options. So vulnerabilities then can look a little bit different from a kid who was growing up in a third world village in India, and maybe the family's completely illiterate. Obviously, the vulnerabilities are going to be different than a kid who's growing up and maybe both mom and dad have great jobs. There's 4 cars in the garage. They've got unlimited access to everything they need, but there's still a vulnerability there. And the vulnerability may play itself out more on social media or through other expressions.
Moving outside of basic knowledge, there's a wealth of information to explore on the topic of human trafficking. So where should one go to find credible and relevant info?
We're always happy to have them come to our website, stoptraffickingproject.com. But if you want some national studies, Shared Hope International, they get government grants to where they do studies on every state in America, and they give them a report card. And so whatever state you live in throughout the United States, say I'm in Texas, I live in Fort Worth, I can go to Shared Hope International, I can pull up their website, and I can see specifically for my state of Texas, how we graded, how we rated, things that are happening. People who really want to do a deep dive even into a global scale, every single year, they release what's called the Trafficking in Persons Report. I think this year's report was, 300, 400 pages. It actually gives a grade to every single country in the world. So you really want to help, then mentor a student if you're an adult. If you're a kid, be that peer-to-peer support for one of your friends that you can be a safe peer to say anything you need to say, with this understanding that you would both agree that there may be sometimes as a student we're going to get into a situation where we can't honestly fix this on our own. So there are times we have to go to a trusted adult. It takes a little work if you really want to dig in and just get some more information, and find organizations in your area that may be having presentations and doing different things, and just get involved at whatever level you can.
Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it was a useful resource in learning more about human trafficking. Be sure to watch the other videos on this channel for more information.